Let's go Chiefs! Breaking news! Things are hot behind the scenes. The Kansas City Chiefs draft buzz today is centered around the NFL's new mock drafts, which have generated plenty of discussion among fans and analysts alike. It looks like the team has another opportunity to bolster its roster in a way that could shape the future of the franchise. But the big question remains, who will they select? I'll give you all the details in a moment, but first make sure you've hit that like button if you agree that the Chiefs will make it to the next Super Bowl. So let's get to it. ESPN's Mel Kiper Jr. and NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah have weighed in with their latest mock drafts, each linking Kansas City to a potential game-changing offensive lineman. And let's be honest, Chiefs Kingdom, that's exactly the kind of talk that gets us excited. The Chiefs' offensive line was a glaring problem in the Super Bowl, and fixing it is their top priority. So are Kiper and Jeremiah right? Let's dive into these two intriguing prospects, analyze their strengths and weaknesses, and figure out which one makes the most sense for KC. Let's start with Mel Kiper Jr.'s pick, Kelvin Banks Jr., the dominant offensive tackle from Texas. If Banks is still on the board when Kansas City is on the clock, Brett Veach should make a run for the podium. This guy is a beast. Banks played 3 seasons for the Texas Longhorns, earning just about every accolade you can think of. He was a unanimous All-American, a first-team All-SEC selection his first year in the conference, and a winner of the Outland, Lombardi, and Jacobs blocking awards. Those aren't just impressive accomplishments, they're proof that this guy is ready for the NFL. And if you want numbers, here they are: an overall grade of 86.0, a pass blocking grade of 89.8, and a run blocking grade of 81.0. He allowed just 1 sack all season, despite playing against some of the best pass rushers in college football. Sure, he had 7 penalties, but that's a trade-off you can live with when you're getting elite protection for Patrick Mahomes. The key thing with Banks is versatility. He's got the power and quickness to play anywhere on the line. Whether that's left tackle, right tackle, or even guard, he's the kind of player you can plug in and immediately get production from. If the Chiefs want a long-term solution to their offensive line struggles, Banks is as good as it gets. But, and this is a big but, will he even be available at pick 31? Kiper himself admits it would be a surprise if Banks falls that far, and honestly, I agree. Elite offensive tackles get snatched up quickly, and Banks is one of the best in this draft class. If Kansas City wants him, they might have to trade up. But if he somehow slips, he could be the steal of the first round. Now, let's flip the script and look at Daniel Jeremiah's pick, Josh Simmons from Ohio State. Unlike Banks, Simmons isn't a consensus top-tier tackle, but that doesn't mean he isn't a great option for Kansas City. Simmons started his college career at San Diego State before transferring to Ohio State, where he became a key part of their offensive line. He was a third-team All-Big Ten selection and played a vital role in the Buckeyes' national championship run. Statistically, he's solid, an overall grade of 74.4, an impressive pass-blocking grade of 82.0, and a run-blocking grade of 68.7. The most eye-popping number? 0 sacks allowed. That's right, not a single sack given up all season. That kind of consistency is exactly what the Chiefs need. However, there are some concerns. Simmons isn't as polished as Banks and has had some injury issues in the past. He also missed part of last season, which makes it a little tougher to evaluate his long-term durability. The biggest question here is whether Simmons would be a starter from day one. Unlike Banks, who would likely take over a starting role immediately, Simmons might need some time to develop. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. If the Chiefs believe he can grow into a premier offensive lineman, picking him at 31 makes a lot of sense, especially if Banks is already off the board. So where does that leave us, Chiefs Kingdom? If you had to pick between these two, who would you rather have, Kelvin Banks Jr. or Josh Simmons? Banks is the high upside, ready-to-dominate option, but he might not be there at 31. Simmons is the safer bet to actually be available, and while he's not as elite right now, he has all the tools to succeed. Let me know what you think in the comments. Type KB for Kelvin Banks Jr. or JS for Josh Simmons. And if you think the Chiefs should trade up to make sure they get their guy, sound off on that too. The draft is right around the corner, and every decision matters. Stay locked in right here for more Chiefs draft coverage. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for all the latest updates. Now, let's talk strategy. Because, let's be real, Chiefs Kingdom, this isn't just about picking a good player. It's about making the right move at the right time. Brett Veach and the Chiefs front office are playing chess while the rest of the league is playing checkers. So, what's the best way to handle this situation? Should Kansas City hold their ground at pick 31 and hope one of these two linemen falls to them? Or should they get aggressive and make a move up the draft board? Historically, we know Veach isn't afraid to trade up if there's a player he truly believes in. Just look at what he did in 2017, moving up to draft Patrick Mahomes, a decision that changed the entire course of the franchise. If Veach sees Kelvin Banks Jr. as a franchise left tackle, why wouldn't he pull the trigger and move up a few spots? It's a deep draft at other positions, so Kansas City could sacrifice a later pick to secure an elite lineman. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. What if the Chiefs decide to stay put at 31? If Banks is off the board, then Simmons becomes a real possibility. And here's something to think about. What if the Chiefs draft Simmons with the intention of moving him inside to guard? The idea of flexibility on the offensive line has been a recurring theme for Andy Reid's coaching staff, and Simmons has the size and agility to thrive at multiple spots. He could compete at tackle, sure, but if he fits better at guard, that might not be a bad thing. And let's not forget another potential scenario. What if neither Banks nor Simmons is available? This is the NFL draft, folks. It's unpredictable. If both of these guys are gone, Kansas City might have to pivot. Maybe they go with another offensive lineman. Maybe they take a receiver, adding another weapon for Mahomes. Or maybe they surprise us all and draft a defensive player to bolster Steve Spagnuolo's already dangerous unit. At the end of the day, this pick is about one thing: maximizing the Chiefs' ability to compete for another Super Bowl. Protecting Mahomes should be priority number one. We saw the struggles on the offensive line last season, especially in the Super Bowl. The pass protection issues were glaring, and even though Mahomes is a magician under pressure, you don't want him running for his life every other snap. That's why the focus on offensive line help makes so much sense. So let's settle this, Chiefs Kingdom. If you were Brett Veach, what would you do? Would you trade up for Kelvin Banks Jr., hold steady and hope for Josh Simmons, or pivot to another position entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get the debate going. And don't forget, we've got plenty more draft coverage coming your way, so make sure you're subscribed for all the latest updates. This is going to be a wild draft, and the Chiefs are right in the middle of it. Stay tuned.